Hi friends, today I am with a very interesting video because today I am going to read you Harry Potter book. So it's the first book, J.K. Rowling, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, celebrating 25 years of Harry Potter magic. It's with Bloomberry. So let's start. Oh, Number 1, The Boy Who Lived, Vanishing Glass, The Letter from No One, The Keeper of Keys, Diagonally, The Journey from Platform 9 to 3 Quarters, The Sorting Hat, The Potion Master, The Midnight Duel, Halloween, Quidditch, The Mirror of Itself, Nicholas Flamel, Norbert and the No-Wig Ridgeback, The Forbidden Forest, Through the Trapdoor, the Man with Two Faces. Oh, Hogsmeade. It's the address. We can just go and learn magic. Scotland. I think so. So let's start. Chapter 1, The Boy Who Lived. Mr. and Mrs. Dursley of number 4, Private Drive, were proud to say that they were perfectly normal. Thank you very much. They were the last people you'd expect to be involved in anything strange or mysterious, because they just didn't hold with such nonsense. Mr. Dursley was the director of a firm called Grunnings, which made drills. He was a big beefy man. He was a big beefy man with hardly any neck, although he had have a very large moustache. Mrs. Dursley was thin and blonde and had nearly twice the usual amount of neck, which came in very useful as she spent so much of her time craning over the garden fences spying on the neighbors. The Dursleys had a small son called Dudley, and in their opinion there was no finer boy anywhere. The Dursleys had everything they wanted, but they also had a secret, and their greatest fear was that if somebody if somebody he would discover it, they didn't think they could bear it anymore. Found out about the Potters. Mr. Potters was Mrs. Dursley's sister, but hadn't met for several years. In fact, Mrs. Dursley pretended she didn't have a sister because her sister and her good for nothing nothing husband were as undurslyish as it was possible to be. The Dursleys shuddered to think what the neighbors would say if the Potters arrived in the street. The Dursleys knew that the Potters had a small son too, but they had never seen him. This boy was another good reason for keeping the Potters away. They didn't want Dudley mixing with a child like that. When Mr. and Mrs. Dursley woke up on the dull grey Tuesday, our story starts. So now guys, the real story is starting. It was an explanation of the all the members. So now the real story started. There was nothing about the cloudy sky outside to suggest that strange and mysterious things would soon be happening all over the country. Mr. Dursley hummed as she picked out his most boring tie for work, and Mr. Dursley gossiped away happily as she wrestled a screaming Dudley into his hall chair. None of them noticed a large tawny owl flutter past the window. At 8:30, Mrs. Dursley picked up his briefcase, pecked Mrs. Dursley on the cheek, and tried to kiss Dudley goodbye, but missed, because Dudley was now having a tantrum and throwing his cereal on the walls. Little tight chortled Mr. Dursley. As he left the house, he got into his car and backed out of number 4's drive. It was on the corner of the street that he noticed the first sign of something peculiar. A cat reading a map. For a second, Mr. Dursley did not realize that he had seen that. He jerked his head around to look again. There was a tabby cat standing on the corner of the private drive. But there wasn't a map inside. What could he have been thinking of? It must have been a trick of light. Mr. Dursley blinked and started the car and started back. As Mr. Dursley drove around the corner and up the road, he watched the cat in his mirror. It was now reading a sign that said private drive. No looking at the sign. Cats couldn't read maps or signs. Mr. Dursley gave himself a little shake and put the cat out of his mind. As he drove towards town, he thought of nothing except a large order of drills. He was hoping to get that day. But on the edge of the town, drills were driven out of his mind by something else. As he sat in the usual morning traffic jam, he couldn't help noticing that there seemed to be a lot of strangely dressed people about. People in cloaks. Mr. Dursley couldn't bear people who dressed in funny clothes. The get-ups you saw on young people, he supposed this was some stupid new fashion. He drummed his finger on the steering wheel like this, on steering. What should I do? What should I do? Like that. Steering wheel, and his eye fell on a huddle of these weirdos standing quite close by. They were whispering excitedly together. Mr. Dursley was enraged to see that couple of them weren't young at all. Why, that man had to be older than he was, and wearing an emerald green cloak. The nerve of him! But then it struck Mr. Dursley in that this was probably some silly stunt. These people were obviously collecting for something. Yes, that would be it. The traffic moved on, and a few minutes later, the Mrs. Dursley arrived in the Grunnings car parking car park. His mind back on drills. Mr. Dursley always sat with his back to the window in the office on the ninth floor. If he hadn't, he might have found it harder to concentrate on the drills that morning. I just like these chocolates. He didn't see the owls swooping past in broad daylight. Though people down in the street did, they pointed and gazed open-mouthed. Oh, like this. Oh, you're smashing the subscribe button right now, right? Wow. I'm actually telling really. Please smash the subscribe button. Most of them had never seen an owl, even at night time. Mr. Dursley, however, had a perfectly normal owl-free morning. He yelled at 5 different people. He made several important telephone calls and shouted a bit more. He was in a very good mood until lunchtime, when he thought he'd stretch his legs and walk across the road to buy himself a bun and from the baker's opposite. He'd gone all about the people in cloaks until he passed a group of them next to the baker's. He eyed them angrily as he passed. He didn't know why, but they made him uneasy. This lot they were referring excitedly to, and he couldn't see a single collecting tin. So that's all for today, and if you like this video, please like and subscribe my YouTube channel. Bye.